Welcome to the Top Agent Happy Hour podcast, where you'll learn how to build a real estate career worth celebrating. Join us as real estate's top producers, industry insiders, and team leaders pull back the curtain, sharing secrets and actionable ideas for attracting clients, delivering great service, and closing deals. You'll also go beyond the deal, learning how to connect with your why, be authentically awesome, and build your will to win. And now let's join your real estate rock star hosts from Pearson Smith Realty, Richard Bridges and Dustin Fox.
Awesome. Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Top Agent Happy Hour, where we interview top agents from across the country, find out how they uniquely grew their business. And today, we're joined by a very special guest, Alex Bracke. We work together. He's a colleague. He's a guru in the industry. He knows so much. He's done so much. And we really can't wait to crack that nut. I am one of your hosts, Richard Bridges, my co-host, Dustin Fox. Thank you, Alex, for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. I'm super stoked.
Yeah, this is going to be exciting. I really want our listeners to be able to fully understand kind of, your business, how it started, how you've gotten to where you are, kind of the progressions, lessons learned, all those things. But I think to get us started, can you tell us a little bit about your business, how you got into the industry, how you started, what appealed to you with the business, your underlying why, all that stuff. Just kind of break it out for us.
Sure, 100%. So a lot of folks know that, before I was in real estate, I was a police officer. Had really no intention of ever leaving that job. I thought I would always retire as a cop. As it turned out, family life happened, and I found out that the policing job, it wasn't nearly the same during the daytime as it was on midnight shift. I worked midnights my whole career. I loved it. I didn't leave because I didn't love it. But the problem was that it didn't make for awesome family life. I was always working at night, and then when I'm supposed to be asleep, I was in court, and it was super unhealthy, and I wanted more for my family. So that was sort of what made me, in a nutshell, want to leave policing. At that time, I had bought a house, sold it, and then bought another one with 3 different agents. At the time, I didn't have any overtly horrible experiences with the agents. I just kind of kept feeling like, it felt like this could be done a lot better. And so I started doing some reading on the real estate industry, read Gary Keller's, Millionaire Real Estate Agent book and several others. And that sort of led me to believe that I felt like there was a place in the market for me, for somebody that wanted to run a business like I try to do it, very kind of techie and just a lot different than maybe some other agents are doing it. And I started seeking out, didn't intend on joining a team initially. I went and started interviewing brokerages. Wasn't really in love with any of them I was talking to until I went to one. It was actually at a RE/MAX here locally. And I told the broker, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. I want to run this, kind of techie style of business. And he said, you really should talk to this guy, Pearson. He's got a small team. He's kind of up and coming. You should talk to him because he's kind of doing what you're talking about. So obviously, the rest is history. I talked to him, joined his team, was one of the first agents to do that, and obviously then followed him when he left that brokerage and started Pearson Smith. I followed and couldn't be happier.
Nice. So did you, when you said you did 3 transactions kind of previously before you were even a licensed agent, like with other agents, did those agents not have any follow-up plan post-transaction with you to stay in touch? Or I know Client Giant wasn't in existence at the time, but did any of them do a good enough job or stay in touch with you enough to kind of keep your business?
No, the first 2, I don't think I've heard from them ever since, which is, again, you guys know, very stereotypical. A lot of the listeners know too. I mean, a lot of the agents, could do a better job at some of that past client retention. The third agent I use, to her credit, she does. I still actually get her kind of automated newsletter emails that go out. But that's it. It's just, it's obvious those emails are kind of automated that get sent out. They're not super engaging. And I don't think she's ever reached out to me like as a past client or anything after the fact.
Gotcha. So what does your typical day look like now as an agent?
So these days I used to, prior to, kids are getting a little bit older now. I still have two really young kids, 5 and 1. And so prior to them getting a little older, I was, very often up at 4 or 5 in the morning, and I would come straight into the office and just start working. Now that the kids are getting a little bit older, I like to be around kind of for that morning routine, see them off to school, et cetera. So now I'm usually getting into the office, between 8 and 9 or so, still early enough. My mornings are pretty regimented. There's not a whole lot that changes in the morning. Mornings is usually office time. I'm in, typically working on the business, doing, kind of the behind the scenes type stuff, following up with transactions and whatever. Maybe, like right now we're building out a new back end system that I've been working on seemingly forever. And then the afternoons is where it kind of changes every day. I mean, I could be meeting with clients. I could be doing, home inspections. I could be, I belong to, a couple business networking groups, those are in the afternoons. So that's where it's anybody's guess what I could be doing that day.
And what does your business structure as a whole look like? How are you kind of set up? Do you have a team? Individual? Do you have what's your setup? Your arrangement? How does kind of your business unfold on a day to day?
Sure. So I started my own team. I think back in 2014 or 15. I kind of quickly grew it to a pretty sizable team. I think we had at one point 11 or 12 agents on the team. I started realizing that I think I was growing too fast, too quick. So we started scaling it back. And right now I've got myself, 2 other licensed agents on the team. One of those agents actually does more of just our back end stuff. Her name is Jelaine. She does like our transaction coordination and sort of administrative assistant type stuff. We have another sales agent. That's his full-time thing is he does sales along with me. And then we've got an ISA that works behind the scenes for us as well. She's unlicensed. And we've got a couple, just independent contractors that work for us as needed.
So it's interesting that you started and I hear this a lot from other people, and even people who've been on the show with us, is they ramped up very quickly, they got busy, then they started a team, they grew the team quickly, and then there was some challenges that were presented by doing that, and then they reined it in a little bit. Can you tell us about how you ultimately came to that decision, what it looked like? Because I can't imagine that's easy, and just kind of how that process unfolded.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, it was I still like being in the trenches. I like the sales game, if you will. I mean, I'm super competitive. I love to win. I mean, so I kind of have that drive. I like to still do that. And when I was growing the team, a lot of, I want folks to come on the team, and, sales agents, that is. I want them to, kind of lean on me for the experience and the knowledge. Like I like, giving them that. But obviously it's all time. I only have so many hours in the day. And so what I saw really quick was when I'm bringing on lots and lots of agents, that's super cool. It's fun. I love doing that. But that's all time that I'm not spending in my own sales pipeline and things like that. So I quickly went from, doing 50 some odd deals a year to like 20 some a year, just because of time. I was taking half of my time, dedicating it to something other than sales. And lo and behold, I did about half the number of deals. So that's something that I want to avoid as we move forward. We probably will grow the team again here in the very near future. But again, it's a little older, a little wiser. And now I know, let's not bring on maybe, 6 people in a month, like let's slow it down and do it over a longer period of time.
It's all about growth. And to that point, if you decide to scale it again from the lessons you learned, who would be like an ideal candidate that you would want to find for your team? So if maybe one of our listeners is listening, or, if you can help our other team owners that maybe are thinking, maybe I have a personnel or staffing issue, what are you looking for in a team member?
So great question. So I actually am kind of going the opposite direction than I was at last time. Before I was really looking for, folks that weren't like me at all. I mean, as you guys know, I have a very kind of unique personality, kind of hard driver, and I was looking for folks that, were even oftentimes very, very different than that, to create a a pretty well-rounded, balanced team. Now, I think actually I am realizing, whatever 5-6 years in the business now, that the type of clients that are attracted to the way that I do business, is it's a type of client, right? I mean, they have a similar personality, similar background. A lot of them are former military, former police. And honestly, I kind of would like to develop a team that's sort of surrounded with folks that are like-minded. We think alike, act alike, because that's the type of clients, honestly, that we're attracting anyway. And so kind of just owning, who we are instead of me trying to, spread myself too thin, really just zeroing in on the type of folks that really want to work with, somebody like me, again, kind of former police, current police, past, military, things like that, as opposed to, trying to cast the net too wide.
Gotcha. So you're probably looking for somebody that maybe already has, that's already self-accountable, like accountability, military, police, they're able to kind of meet their promises.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I mean, that's, that is, I guess, kind of a hallmark of our personality. I mean, if we say we're going to do something, I mean, come hell or high water, we're going to do it. So I mean, that's, there's a benefit to that, but I mean, look, I mean, there's a downside to our personalities too. We're all drivers, I mean, we're all hard-headed A-type personalities, and there's drawbacks to that too. So I mean, but yes, I mean, kind of having that background and having that life experience, I mean, that's, people kind of talk about the brotherhood. I mean, it's totally true, and we're able to relate to each other, sometimes better than we could folks that maybe don't have that background.
So where are you guys at right now production-wise in terms of so far 2019 and what's your stretch goal for the rest of 2019 and going into 2020?
So for this year, our stretch goal is 65 deals between, basically 2 sales agents. For me, my goal, and I'm on pace, maybe a little bit ahead, is about 50 for the year. So I'm kind of tracking on pace for that. 2020, I really, that's kind of the year I see us growing again. So I'd like to think that we could hit 100 for 2020. But a lot of that again is just, it depends whether the folks that we bring onto the team, are they current agents that maybe already have a book of business that's rolling, or maybe they're brand new, in which case there's going to be a startup period. So a lot's going to depend on obviously the folks that we end up bringing in.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So a lot of this business is mental, right? And a lot of times we don't talk as much about the mental side of the business as we need to, but it's probably like, if you're using the Pareto principle, a lot of like what you do and getting out of bed and the consistency and doing the things you should do, that's like 80% of finding your success in the business. How do you keep your mental state on point? How do you stay positive or upbeat or focused or consistent? Like, what are the things you do to stay disciplined?
So for me, one of the things I've found about myself, and I've known this for years, like I'm, some people might call me a workaholic. Like I work a lot if I just go just unchecked. And what I've seen in myself, just the pattern, is that I will just sprint and work 18, 20 hours a day. But there comes a point at which, like, the burnout hits or whatever. And so for me, the battle that I have is just, I have to kind of dial things back more than I feel like I should, because I know that that's going to prevent some of that burnout and whatever. Whenever you get burned out, if there's anything that, that happens, deals go sideways or whatever, it's exponentially worse if you're kind of struggling with that burnout and fatigue, versus, if you don't have that, then, sometimes those problems aren't nearly as big of a deal. So for me, it's kind of just like a daily struggle, right? Like when I get home, I'm home with family, I'm focused on them, and, I'm trying not to turn the computer back on, answer text, do all that stuff that normally, I'm happy to do till 1 or 2 in the morning. Like that's just
right
how I operate.
Oh my gosh, the number of agents that I talk to on a daily basis that struggle with that work-life balance, and it's so challenging. You talk about it all the time, but when you're a go-getter, when you're driven like you, when you kind of have that personality dynamic, and there's stuff that needs to get done, and that represents a goal that you have for yourself. It's hard to know when to dance, to dance that fine line of, do I engage or am I home right now? Is this time that can wait till later? And so I'm glad, it's refreshing to hear that everybody kind of has these same similarities. And I always am curious about how they make that work-life balance work.
Yeah. For me, it's just, I just have to know that, and it's I think the struggle for me is that I don't feel the negative repercussions right away. Like it's like a buildup for me. If I keep doing that, then suddenly it's like I just, I'm not wanting to put forth the effort that I know I need to and should,
Sure.
that my clients deserve, family deserves, all that good stuff. And so it's more just even though I feel like, I want to, need to, whatever, like be, like pushing, grinding, whatever, late into the night, like I know that I can't do that because that's not a winning combination for me.
Right.
Gotcha. So what has been your kind of number one lead generating source? If you broke your business down into pillars, and it's kind of a two-part question, if you took like kind of your top two, if you were teaching a new agent or somebody was coming onto your team, like how would you teach them how to maximize those top lead generating sources?
So, I mean, we talk on our team a lot about, that you've got two types of, you've got either sweat equity or tech equity, right? I mean, most new agents, they're going to do a lot more of that sweat equity because they just don't have a lot in reserves for the business. So, I mean, for me personally now, having closed, however many 100 deals, like we have a lot of my business now comes by referral. And so that's cool. I really like that. I'm pretty proud of, I have last year was about 18% conversion from, the folks in my sphere versus how many transactions came from that. It was about 18%, which is really good. I'm really happy with that number. Other than that, if we're not looking at sphere, probably the next best is expireds. I still work expireds hard and heavy. I now have support with that. I don't have to do all of the calling on my own. We've got, IFAs in place to sort of support that role. But I still very much like doing that because it puts me in that, the ability to compete and win business again. And that's where I think I do the best. Outside of expireds, I get a lot of this year, definitely, hands down. I've gotten more referrals this year than I ever have before. There is a huge percentage of my business this year that's done by referral. So that would be, I'm not sure if that's number two or number three.
No, that's perfect. So I just kind of want to deep dive into each of these. So in terms of sphere or repeat and referral, what systems kind of like meat and potatoes, what systems do you have in place that kind of allow that to happen where you're getting 18% of your business?
So our sphere gets touched 45 times a year by us. Most of it has some level of automation behind it. So we send out biweekly emails, like an email newsletter type. So that right there is 26 just by itself. We kind of monitor our click rate and open rates and all that good stuff, trying to make sure that we're sending valuable content to them. We also do one snail mail postcard a year. So that's another 12, or I'm sorry, one snail mail postcard per month. That's another 12 touches. And then we also do quarterly client appreciation events. So like the last one we did was wildly successful. The first time we've done it, we took everybody out to a Washington Nationals baseball game, and got the group discount on it. And so it wasn't horribly expensive, but I mean, people loved it. And having kind of a really wide geographic region that we serve, that's kind of one of the things that folks are willing to come in for, and it makes sense as opposed to like we also do like a family movie day, right, where folks maybe won't drive 45 minutes to come see a movie, but they will drive 45 minutes to see a Nats game. So we do the quarterly client appreciation events where they're hearing from us at least once, usually twice or three times for that, reminders and things like that to sign up. And then we also have, so I personally, usually at the beginning of each month, I will send out personal, I still do it myself, handwritten birthday cards, handwritten house of cards, sending out happy anniversary to your home sale. And so we do that, like I said, every month.
Nice. I love it. I love the Nats game because I see a lot of agents and they're doing it the right way with client appreciations like pumpkin patch, Santa. But for me personally, my personality type, if I have to like like do the small talk with people for like a couple hours at a pumpkin patch, it makes my skin crawl. So like being able to see them at a Nats game and then everybody just kind of watching the game sounds like a perfect situation for my personality. So kind of
it was awesome. And I tried actually, because this year I really wanted to like start doubling down on that. Once I realized again, like, holy cow, we're getting like 18% conversion. Like, this is crazy. We need to double down. So I actually started, believe it or not, I was like, so ridiculous. If you know me, like, I actually started trying to do pop buys to my clients who are like, again, former military, former police. I'm like showing up at the door like little things of jam, and they're like, "The hell's the matter with you? What is this?" You know? Like,
yeah. I had that as well when I did a pop by. Like I had somebody like looking through the blinds and I could see that they saw me and didn't come to the door, and it was like super awkward. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah. I literally had one of my buddies. He was like, "What's the matter with you? What are you doing? What am I going to do with this jam?"
Yeah.
So
take a spike it on the ground.
Yeah, like forget it. No, so yeah, I don't do pop buys anymore because it doesn't suit me and it doesn't suit my clients. You know.
Right.
So and now kind of going back to the expired withdrawals, because that's kind of been a big way for you to get where you at are with repeat and referrals is by staying in touch with those original clients that you've built from the expired or withdrawn business. Is there anything you can tell a listener that of 4 years or 5 years of you doing expired and withdrawals, like anything that you've learned that maybe somebody that's coming in that's just picking up the phone for the first time, that they could get some wisdom from you?
Yeah, I think it's really important, and this isn't just with expired withdrawals. I think it's just this business in general. It's crazy important for you to know why should they use you, right? In our area, in the immediate DC metro region, rest assured that the script that you're calling with, they've heard it already. You're not the first one probably. They've heard it from 7 or 8 other people at a minimum already. So you're going to have to come at something more than just the script. You're going to have a compelling value proposition that you can provide them. And in my opinion, until you have that worked out, until you know what that is, and for the record, providing good service doesn't qualify. That's just sort of the minimum barrier to entry. That's not a value proposition. Until you have that value proposition, it's going to be really hard. If you work some more outlying areas, I'm thinking like for our region, like a Winchester or a Stafford, or you're just a little bit further out, that struggle's not quite as big of a deal because there's just not as much competition. But if you're calling here in the immediate metro region, and like so many others throughout the nation, if you're right outside of a big city or in the city, you better have a pretty doggone good value proposition.
I love it.
Yeah, super true. So one thing I wanted to ask you about is you had mentioned the ISA and kind of working up progressionally to get to that point. And I get a lot of feedback from people who go the ISA route. They outsource it or they hire somebody and they struggle with that. What are some things you think that you've done to make that ISA program work for you?
So I think one of the biggest differences is I was successful with that lead pillar before I ever hired the ISA. I know how to do that, and I still do it. I know the scripts forward and backwards. I know the objection handlers. I know what they're going to say. And so for me to train an ISA and even just continuing ongoing training with the ISA looks very different than somebody who's trying to add expireds as a pillar, has never really worked them themselves, and now is trying to hire an ISA to do this, right? So I think it's very difficult to train anybody to do something if you don't know how to do it really well yourself. And so I think for me, it's just a natural progression of my business because that was something I specialized in and still do. It's very easy now for me to transfer that skill set to somebody else, be it agents on the team or ISAs or what have you.
I'm so glad you said that because you put in the sweat equity to get to the point where you were proficient. And I think a lot of people want the quick fix and they go, oh, there's people out there I can hire and outsource this thing to. I don't do expireds. I'm going to add it in. I'm going to spend money on this thing. And they don't even know how to provide any level of accountability to the person they've hired because they themselves don't know how to do it. So it's a great tidbit. And kind of on the back end of that, what do you think is, our industry is so dynamic, it's ever changing. And we always ask, what do you think the future is kind of holding from a what are going to be the most important pillars moving forward as disruptors, they get traction as technology continues to change? What do you think newer agents or agents who are really trying to, stay in tune with what's happening in the future, what do they need to be focusing on?
Again, I think so many of those disruptors, they can't touch our value proposition, right? We've got a really solid value proposition. And our value propositions are different depending on our clientele, right? So for, just an example, when I started a program when I first came into real estate that solved the problem that cops have, right? When I bought a house as a cop, I didn't like that anybody who wanted to find out where my wife and kids slept while I was at work to do it. They can use the tax records and whatever. It's very easy to do. You don't even have to pay any money to figure that out. So I created a program that solved that problem, right? That's something that nobody else can take away, right? The fact that I'm a former cop, I had that problem. I created this program to solve that problem for other cops. Purple bricks, albeit they're not here anymore, your red pens or whatever, like they don't have that ability. They don't have that, call it street cred or whatever, to be able to pitch that. So I think, the biggest thing, and it's a little bit cliche, but you've got to be a problem solver, to come in and say, well, I provide good service. Like, I'm sorry, that just doesn't cut it anymore, man. Like you've got to be able to be solving problems for people in a real way that isn't easily replicated by the discounters. Or the disruptors or whatever the case may be, because they're always going to be here. It's going to be just a different version of it. So it's, how are you solving problems for people in a unique and difficult to replicate way?
Nice. So what's something new, could be like last 6 months or the last couple of years that you've added to your business from a marketing perspective that's been kind of a game changer for you?
We actually, as you guys may know, a lot of folks know, I'm big into coaching. I've had a business coach for many years. We actually just got a different coach earlier this year, probably around March or April. And as part of that, he kind of dissected our business and went kind of with a fine-tooth comb and started looking at things. And he was actually the one that pointed out that we have a really high conversion with past clients. And I had always told myself all along, the track running through my head was that I'm not good at networking. I'm not good at doing one-to-one marketing. It's just not for me. And he was kind of the one that looked at me and was like, you're full of crap. You actually are. Here's the numbers, so why don't you start focusing more on doing networking and things like that? So that is something I've been putting a focus in on. I joined a B&I group, and I'm doing a lot more of that type of marketing that I never touched prior to 6 months ago. And I can see it's huge. I mean, it's going to be a really big deal. And I think that too, like that type of marketing is, again, that's something that some of those disruptors, they can't take that away. If you have a lot of folks, a lot of business folks, movers and shakers, clients that are, that know you, like you, trust you, you've already won their business.
Well, it's interesting because you keep talking about like customer service is the bare minimum. That's like the barrier to entry. And, we had Jay O'Brien on the show with Client Giant, and he talks about the same thing, saying like what we as agents like kind of signify as a 5-star review is really just us doing our jobs. That's the bare minimum. But in really, what is 5-star? What is 5-star service? And with you've established these very unique selling propositions. And what you've realized recently with your coach's help is that your SOI, who knows what your unique selling proposition is better able to articulate that to the masses than even you are just by yourself. But by focusing on that, by working it, by systemizing it, it's getting even better. And that's super exciting. And it's so interesting to see just kind of how your business has just progressed over the years.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. It's like, the obvious solution was staring me in the face all along. Like, why, but looking back on it, it almost sounds like ridiculous. Like, why did I not see that? Why was I telling myself that I wasn't good at networking and connecting one-on-one? Great question. I don't know. Shame on me.
And you mentioned coaching, right? And this was kind of a thing that helped you ultimately get there. Give us your take on coaching, because I think some agents look at it as like, hey, it's expensive to be an agent and it costs money to have a coach, and I may not have the money to do that. Why do you spend the money on having a coach?
what I realized early on, I started looking for coaching because I wanted to have a lot of pillars of business, right? I didn't want to be a one-trick pony. I didn't want to be just good at converting online leads. I knew that in order to really last in this business and, excel and have a long career, I needed to become an expert in a lot more. And so for me, I didn't know how to do that. I had mentors here, Eric Pearson, head of Pearson Smith Realty, has been phenomenal. But even Eric, right? When you max out his knowledge, like there's other ways to do things that he wasn't maybe awesome at. And I want to start mastering some of that. And so I wanted somebody that could help me. We talk about it all the time. I wanted somebody that could help me circumvent the learning curve, right? I wanted to be able to go from 0 deals to 50 deals, in a really short amount of time. And for me, coaching is the way that I did that. It's somebody that's already made it to the mountaintop, right? They've already built a massive real estate empire, sold it off, and now they do this just to give back. They've been there, and they can help me circumvent that learning curve and save me a lot of time and money, frankly, in the process.
Love it. So because of the coaching and your experience level just in volume and 5-6 years in the business, what's the biggest mistake you see other agents making?
I think the most obvious mistake that I see is a lot of folks come into this business almost thinking like it's a get rich quick scheme. Like, oh my gosh, it only costs $250 to get a license, and they think magically somehow they're going to have just tens of thousands of dollars rolling in after that. And it's like, this is a sales career. You have to treat it like a job, just like anything else. You've got to come in, you've got to hustle, you've got to grind. And oh, by the way, roughly like 1 in 30 households in Northern Virginia have a realtor living there. So again, you've got a lot of hands in that cookie jar, so you better out hustle, outwork, out want it. And I think that's, for most folks, I think that's where they fall short.
And 1 in 30 houses, was that the number?
Approximately, yeah. Just kind of running numbers, how many folks are licensed in, NVAR and DAR and whatever. Comes down to about 1 in 30.
Yeah, I think a lot of those agents get kind of that cold splash of water in their face after, especially, they might get a deal from a sphere in like the first couple months, and they're like, oh my God, this job is really easy. Like I got paid that much, because it's the same way they look at it when they did their transaction, for their own personal stuff before they were licensed. Right. And then they realize, like to your point, it's a nurturing business and an actual career to get the steady business that's not going to end up being like a roller coaster. Exactly.
And that's, and really, yes, the commission checks look really good, on paper, but then when you factor in, what's it cost to run the business, to keep the lights on, to pay the broker, to pay the taxes, right? Real estate agents are notorious for not paying their taxes. You start peeling all of that away, and it's a less attractive number. And so I think that's something folks have to know coming into it, is that, there's more to it than meets the eye.
And with regards to your real estate business, what are you most proud of? What's the one thing you look back on your career and you just think very fondly of? And then what's one thing that you would go back and maybe change, or a lesson learned that you could give an agent listening to this?
For me, I think the easier question for me to answer is what would I change? I mentioned it earlier. I would not try to cast such a wide net. I would be just super true to who I am. My friends know I'm not politically correct. I say 4-letter words, right? It's just who I am. And staying true to that, because I'm going to attract like-minded people to that. And so I probably would have done more of that up front. And in terms of what am I really proud of? I guess I'm pretty proud of how quickly my business took off. I think it took me about 3 years to get to the 0.5% title for real estate agents. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it. Like, that's just, I was just involved in the grind and had blinders, and that's just what I was doing. But kind of looking back on it now, it's like, wow, like in 3 years, like that happened. Yeah. That's pretty unusual, and that's pretty cool.
Well, you also were the exception. You didn't really touch much on this when you introduced yourself and your background in the business. But when I came in and I was licensed and I met with Eric and I did like multiple interviews, and he asked me like, do you have children? Are you like equal or major breadwinner? And then he's like, you're going to go full-time or part-time? And I was like, I'm going full-time. And he was like, are you crazy? Like, you're not going to probably make any money for 6 to 12 months. And it was like really refreshing for me to hear the honesty. But I said, well, I think I can make a lot of money. I think I'd be really successful part-time. And he's like, well, I only know one guy that's ever done it. He's like, managing, I was like agent number 45 at the time. And he used you as an example. He's like, this is the only guy, and the whole time I've been in business, that's been a successful agent closing a lot of transactions regularly, that's done it part-time. So how were you able to kind of manage both of those?
Yeah, I have people ask me that a lot, because and full disclosure, when people come and ask me about getting into the business, I discourage the hell out of them trying to do this part-time. I say the only reason that I was able to do that was really pretty simple. I still worked midnights as a cop. I worked 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. I'd get off work at 5 a.m., go home, shower, trick myself into thinking I had slept, and then I would go into the office till about noon or so, and then go home, sleep for 2 hours, and do it all over again. So there's only so many hours in the day. I just chose to cut out sleep, which I don't recommend, and live off of caffeine. But it sort of served as a side benefit to me. It forced me to, 4 months in, living on 2 hours of sleep a night. I mean, I remember going to Eric Pearson and saying, oh my God, dude, like, I literally feel like I'm going to die. Like, this is, I'm so tired and so run down. Like, something had to change for me. And so that forced me to make a decision. I either need to get rid of one or the other. And I just decided I'm going to go head first. And so I jumped in, left the law enforcement career, and went full-time exclusive in real estate.
Nice. Yeah, what are you seeing right now in terms of one of the big players, RealTrend, top 100 in this area? What are you seeing like in the market today? Where do you trends and being in the DC, Northern Virginia market? What are you seeing right now?
I'm seeing a lot of almost uncertainty in the market. I mean, had you asked me a year ago, I would have said 100% the market's going to start sliding a little bit in 2019, like no doubt about it. I think we started seeing that in the first quarter, or even maybe the first half of the year. It was starting. And in some areas, we're still down year over year in pricing, believe it or not. I mean, inside the Beltway doesn't see that, but, like Leesburg, certainly Winchester, even Sterling, some areas are down year over year. But I think it's back on the uptick again now that, rates have come down. There's, certain economic indicators are, they're trying to hold off that recession as long as possible. But I do think that a slowdown is coming. It's inevitable. We've been on an upward trend for 10, even 11 years maybe now. So, that slip in the real estate industry is coming. And that's something that we've been trying to prepare for a long time. I started working expireds with the idea that, hey, when the market slips, I'm going to be in a really good place, because that's the skill set you need to excel, and actually have business growth during a period of, maybe contraction. So I think it's coming. It's inevitable. It's going to be here. It's just a matter of when.
All right, I like that. And we talk a lot with other people, and we're way overdue for the market correction, for the recession. And I like that you've already thinking far enough in advance to think about what are the things you're going to do when that happens to continue to produce at a high level. And that kind of piggybacks or segues nicely into my next question, which is, what is your big picture goals? What do you want to ultimately accomplish, like not in the next year per se, but maybe in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you see yourself? Where do you see Alex Bracke, his team? What does that look like?
So, I got into the business, with the idea that I wanted to do something that I liked doing, that was challenging to me, but also had the ability to change the financial bloodline of my family. I came growing up, we didn't have lots of money. I held a job, I think, from the time I was 8 years old. So
Did we lose him?
Yeah, I think we lost him for a second. Let's just pause here.
They also have that, where they also have that freedom to, kind of make a new life for themselves and create financial independence that they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So I would love that ability. I don't have a set number on that. I don't say, I want 50 agents on my team or whatever. Like, for me, it's just about kind of giving back to other folks that want to do the same ride that I went on. And ultimately, I would love to, on a personal level, start acquiring additional rental properties so that there's more financial independence and security for me and my family.
Nice. That's awesome.
Nice. So, and kind of these are our two final segment questions. It's a two-parter. So since you've been in the business 5-6 years, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Gosh, probably something along the lines of, do the thing, have the power, do not the thing, have not the power. That's an Emerson quote, Ralph Waldo Emerson. Tom Ferry is the one that told it to me, and I think it's so true. The awesome thing about this business is that your income is going to be a direct reflection on your effort. And the bad thing about this business is your income is going to be a direct reflection on your effort. There is no downtime. You don't get to, take a 2-week paid vacation, right? I mean, you can take a vacation, but you're not getting paid. So I love that, I can come here, whereas in previous jobs, I could be the best there was and I'd get a plaque every year for it, but at the end of the day, plaques don't pay bills. Here, if I do really, really well, I'm going to be financially rewarded for that. So, I think that's the key is that, you come in every day. In my mind, I'm back at zero. I have to reprove myself today, because tomorrow and everything behind me doesn't exist in my mind. And so for me, it's do the thing, have the power.
I love it. All right. This one's a little tougher. This one's a tough one. So you work expired withdrawals. You got one that's, you're realizing really early on in the transaction that they're pretty crazy. But you're the only one out of the past 3 or 4 agents that's got the deal done. But I mean, from beginning to close, they're nuts. They're in a post-occupancy. It's still nuts. You finally have it all wrapped up. And because we are Top Agent Happy Hour, you're going out to celebrate. What is your drink of choice?
I'm a beer guy. There's not a whole lot of beers that I don't like. Stouts are about it. Don't hate. Pretty much I'm a seasonal beer guy. In the summertime, I want something summery. In the wintertime, it's maybe a little bit heavier, but it's going to be a cold beer.
I love it, buddy. So, Alex, if somebody's got a Virginia, DC, Maryland referral, or they're thinking about maybe they're motivated and they're accountable agent, they're thinking about joining on a team, how do they get a hold of you?
So my email address is probably the best, alex@alexbracke.com. Last name is Bracke, alex@alexbracke.com, and my cell number is 571-393-1082.
I love it. Thank you very much, Alex. And Richard, how does everybody get a hold of you? They're looking for coaching or just need to lean on you for your years of experience since you were a baby as an agent?
Thank you. I appreciate that. So that would be email is absolutely the best way. It basically functions like a text. Richard.bridges@pearsonsmithrealty.com. Again, Richard.bridges@pearsonsmithrealty.com would be the best way.
And for me, it's Dustin.Fox@pearsonsmithrealty.com. If you guys enjoyed the value and the content that we're providing here with this episode, please leave us an iTunes review. 5 stars if you're listening. Don't even bother if you're not leaving 5 stars. And we thank Alex for coming on. We really appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Keep up the good work.
See ya.